Hold it! Before you guys begin leaping straight to the comment section, let me go ahead and preempt a lot of these things straight out of the gate. I don't even typically address things like this, because meta elements outside of the gameplay don't actually impact the gameplay. But there's been too many clickbait videos going around throwing out obviously wrong accusations about the pricing model for this game, so allow me to clear up this misconception before we even get into the game. Dead or Alive 6 on Steam suffers from an issue that I would like to call Tecmo really did not do a very good job explaining what all the options were, like confusingly naming what amounts to the game's demo as a free-to-play core fighters, though I suppose there's nothing prohibiting you from treating it as such and purchasing everything individually over time? Don't really understand the why behind that, but to be historically accurate, DOA 5 did the same thing. But that's not the game we're talking about today in particular. The full game unlocks the base roster of characters and all available modes of play, and the DLC is very confusingly laid out, so let me explain that real quick. There are 4 DLC characters, all labeled appropriately, and the rest of the DLC is costumes and purely optional add-ons. But here's the thing, every batch of DLC content is, in reality, listed on the store 3 times each. Once in the form of the game's 4 season passes, new content was coming out for the game into the latter half of 2020 for context, once with each individual set listed as its own theme bundle, once again with each individual listing for each character, so you have full freedom to customize and purchase what you want and only that. The game does not actually have thousands of dollars of DLC for it. This is not one of those weird train simulators that legit has $5,000 of bolt-ons. But anyone who claims it does is either misunderstanding the situation or being deliberately disingenuous. The only exceptions to this are the Revival series costumes, which are not included in the season passes for reasons that I can't even begin to rationalize away, Tecmo fanboy par excellence that I am. So, for the full game and the DLC characters and no optional costumes, you'd only actually end up paying $60 for base game and $32 total for extra fighters. Far, far less than some of the intellectually dishonest that are claiming Tecmo is trying to sell the game for. And before this just becomes another Snek talk on the topic, though that probably is warranted to some degree, I thought we agreed that optional cosmetic DLC was fine. How is it abusive or predatory to give the players lots and lots of optional things and they can decide if they want them or not? And for what you even get out of them, even the season passes are reasonably priced, I'd argue. And with that, this overly long and no doubt contentious cold open needs to come to its close. Let's talk about the actual game, Dead or Alive 6. Greetings everyone, this is the hipster Snek. And I'll be honest, I debated with myself since the founding of my channel if I was ever going to review games from the Dead or Alive franchise. And the reason, funny enough, is somewhat related to what I talked about in my review of Rumble Roses. When I first saw ads for one of the DOA games, and honestly I can't remember which one that was now, it was literally some schlubby guy sitting around playing the game and making thinly veiled double entendres. So I decided I had no interest in the games. They couldn't possibly be worth my time. Especially when I was already aware of things like a beach volleyball spin-off title, the whole thing came off as shameless and pandering, and frankly, rather desperate. So when this game came to Steam in March of 2019, I largely ignored it. Fun fact, there was also PS4 and Xbox One edition, which also contained some gore and outfit damage mechanics not present in the PC port, so if that's your jam, congrats console heads, you finally won one, I guess. But then Ditaku told me that the games are actually pretty good, and I should really give them a fair shake. I agreed to meet his challenge, and it was wrong of me to knock it without trying it first. So I sat down with the free version, and crap, it's a really good fighting game, and it's really tight and intuitive mechanics. Well, sometimes being wrong can be a pleasant surprise after all. Let's dig into the story a little. And yes, there is a story. DOA 6 picks up where DOA 5 left off. Yeah, that's not super helpful, so let me try to explain here as best I can, as there's a lot going on due to the large roster of characters. There's a few factions at play here, including DOA Tech, a company now run by Helena Douglas, which used to be controlled by Victor Donovan, a man hidden in the shadows trying to control everything he can by way of researching into high technology and the world of magical happenings, including cloning de facto protagonist Kasumi multiple times over the course of the series. Speaking of, Kasumi, Ayane, and boring-face Mikoni-chan, Hayate, are from the Mugen Tenshin ninja tribe and have... there's no other word for it. They can do legit magic, but it's so destructive that it's rarely implemented in the games mechanically, and usually reserved for elements of the plot. Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden cameos frequently as well, but he's basically what would happen if Hayate wasn't as boring as a white bread sandwich with nothing on it and the crust's cut off. At this point in the story, Donovan has been dealt with, supposedly it never takes, and Kasumi has gone into hiding for reasons that aren't entirely clear, as Doa 5 ended with an entire oil derrick going up in a fiery explosion likely visible from space. Honestly, a lot of the lore comes from how the various characters interact with one another, like La Mariposa, a lucha libre enthusiast who secretly used to be on Donovan's payroll until she broke free and now fights to bring his organization down, or Christie, who was and remains under the shady scientific organization's pull and goes out of her way to harass the good guys. And since the story campaign in Doa 6 is a bit on the disjointed side, I'll leave it to you guys to really dig into it and learn what's going on as you go. It's all completely insane and I love every minute of it. Graphically, it's pretty safe to say that Tecmo spares no expense in making the game look amazing. The levels are bright and vivid with tons of background detail, and the fighters and their wardrobes have painstaking levels of detail and care placed into each. As a quick reminder, I'm playing the PC port, so things like the blood effects and clothing damage are not present in my version. I can't say that I mind that, because that would be untrue, though a toggle switch rather than outright removal might have been preferable. In fact, a mechanic from Doa 5, sweating, is a toggle in the options where long drawn-out fights will bring the character to break a sweat or get covered in dirt over the course of the brawl. And yes, I know what a lot of people out there want me to say, the game has very unrealistic body proportions. For example, look at this man! Bass is like 8 feet tall and he's built like an 80s shonen manga protagonist. That's a high bar for schlubby nerds like myself to rise up to. So I mean, I get it, but you know, gotta start pumping iron sometime. Audio-wise, the game's a treat. The music is great, with this really aggressive rock techno fusion that gets the blood pumping every match. Even the menu theme's pretty catchy in its own way. Kinda reminds me of Sonic Adventure 2 in a weird way. The voice cast is giving an A game, no doubt. Special props to mastery of scenery chewing, Bass Armstrong, for his bombastic delivery, which never fails to put a smile on my face. Just masterfully done. Mechanically, Dead or Alive as a franchise has always been solid, and Doa 6 knew it didn't need to change too much. Rather than relying on long strings of combo chains, most fighters in the game have shorter, more deliberate actions that resolve lightning fast and vary based on directional input. The face buttons correspond to punch, kick, grab, and block, with the shoulders being varying combinations of these inputs. However, what makes this deceptively simple set of instructions more nuanced and crunchy is how context changes execution. For instance, some characters have various stances that they can assume after resolving other moves, which will change the nature of the attack executed from the stance versus the default. Drunken Fist Master Brad Wong exemplifies this perfectly, for example, but I am terrible at playing him. So, certain things like timing when you grab someone, for example, can lead into combo throws, a specialty of Tina's, and it can really rack up the damage while flinging your opponent around like a ragdoll. Going a step further is the game's robust counter system, which allows you to turn an enemy's attack against them, and one of the things that keeps the frenetic pace of the game at its finest. High attacks are blocked with a swift input of back and guard, and low attacks by forward guarding, so a measurement of prediction is required to get the most out of it. And a lot of this is because Dead or Alive, and here's a phrase you might not have expected to hear me say, is shockingly realistic for a fighting game. 99% of the cast has no projectiles at all. The ones that do are considered super bosses, and only one has anything akin to the infamous Mortal Kombat teleport technique. In fact, if anything is overpowered, it's the severe damage that can be inflicted from electrified walls surrounding certain arenas, which is still pretty realistic when you stop to consider what's actually happening there. The most game-like aspect of the fighting is the addition of the break bar, which can be spent either in small chunks, which will allow either for a defensive move to break out of combos or tight situations, or it can be spent all at once in order to execute this game's idea of a special move. However, unlike many other fighting games, these moves are not instantly fatal, nor do they imbalance the fighting experience. I actually feel this level of fine-tuning is admirable, something other fighting games could consider adapting for themselves. And with an entertaining campaign mode, a robust arcade mode versus time and survival challenges, there is certainly a lot to do and master. So if I was going to complain, what would I bring up? Well, the game lacks DOA 5's tag battle mode, one of my favorite styles of fighting games ever since my days of playing Marvel vs. Capcom the first back on my PS1. And despite seeming very similar, a bunch of outfits and characters from 5 were never put into 6. Other issues, like the lack of an online room system, were patched in over time, and frankly, playing something like a fighting game online is a toxic experience, so it's one that I tend to shy away from. Generally speaking, I just wanted more. Dead or Alive 6 was met with average to above average reviews, and its recent reviews on Steam lean to the positive end of things as of this writing. So I hope someday to see a DOA 7, and the weeping and gnashing of teeth of the bad takes portion of the internet, and all its collectivists fun sponges. Overall, DOA 6 is an immensely fun and misunderstood fighting game. Even I made the mistake of underestimating it on the onset. Give it a try for yourselves. You can try the demo out on Steam, and even treat it like a free-to-play with every piece and optional add-on that you can choose to have or neglect at your leisure, or you can just dive in head first. If you like fighting games with fast, furious, and sound mechanical foundations, I can promise you that you will not be disappointed. And this has been the DOA Snek. Did you like today's video? Hit the like button so I know. And for more like this each week, tap the subscribe and bell icon so you'll never miss a one. And you can come back each and every week for Let's Play Snek Tech NDX in the home of the Tomodachi Bros Anime Movie Podcast. Join me here 5 days a week for more, and I will see you there.
I am a champion!